welcome to My Spectrum Life podcast. My name is Jessica. I'm an autism mom, and with me is my wonderful co host, Kelsey, who is a registered behavior technician as well as a special ed teacher.
Yay!
Yay! I remembered what RBT means.
Hey.
Yay!
uh,
Yeah, I knew eventually I'd get it right. Oh, goodness. So, how are you doing today,
uh, I'm
this
actually
fine day?
doing really well. I'm actually in the state of Florida today, broadcasting from Florida with y'all. It's not
Nice.
really a sunshine state right now. It's kind of raining. But the
uh,
trip down was a breeze.
oh, that's
Um,
good. That's good.
so how are
I'm glad
you?
that I'm doing good. Back up in the studio. Um, as my husband's office where he does all his stuff, and all the different podcasts that he does. So, might as well get me up here now that I can climb the stairs. Woohoo! With my
Yay!
hips. So that's awesome. Um, but yeah, things are going really well. We are actually looking at 2 weeks until school starts for my kiddos.
3 weeks
So,
for state of South Carolina right now.
yep. Because we attend Connections Academy in Tennessee, and it's virtual in the first place. Yeah,
Right.
we don't get a late start. We don't get nothing.
No.
Nope. Keep
Nope.
on going.
Wow.
So I know that's been a struggle for so many right now is trying to figure out what's going to happen for school, what they're going to do with their kids. Whether they're going to, I mean, I've seen so many things on Facebook. So I hope that, everybody is really, you decide what's best for your family.
Right, exactly. And don't let
Um,
any other judgment affect you.
exactly. Exactly. Well, school's not what we're going to talk about today.
No, no, it's not.
No, no. There is something that we felt that we really needed to talk about, and that was how to connect to somebody with autism. Uh, because there's so many really bad ways to go about it.
Right.
But before we get into it, we've got two terms of the day that are going to help us with this topic of connecting.
Hmm.
So, our first term is nonverbal cues, which is body language, face expressions, and actions.
Correct. So actions maybe like behavior,
Mm-hmm.
um, or actions in walking away. Those
Mm-hmm.
are all nonverbal cues. Crossing your,
Mm-hmm.
arms, talking
Mm-hmm.
about how if is it matching like this, or you're matching calm and content. Just kind of watching those
Mm-hmm.
nonverbal cues.
Okay. Which is something that actually those on the spectrum get taught. I
Hmm.
know that Curtis had to do a lot of that in his pragmatic speech. Um, so that's one of the places where that will come. And then our second, now at first I had to read this a couple of times because I thought, is this a typo? So it is person first point of view.
Correct. It's a person before their disabilities.
Okay.
It's a new way of thinking. When I went to college in 2009, you used to label them just those with like you would say intellectual disability, or they're autistic,
Mm-hmm.
or some people are comfortable saying they're autistic, which is fine. But when we had to write papers informally, we had to say children with autism, or male with intellectual disabilities. So you're putting the person first because their disabilities is only part of who they are.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you're always, so when it says person point of view, first point of view, it's you're putting the person first.
Right. Okay. And that's what we always need to do is always, I always look at that person first, um, regardless of whether it's a, I guess you call it a visible disability and invisible
Correct.
disabilities.
Right.
I read a very interesting article about invisible disabilities, which is kind of the category that autism would fall into because you can't,
Right.
there's no outward appearances or
Parents.
anything
Right.
that, signify that the person is autistic. And so that's why it's called the invisible disability.
Right.
And this particular article was talking about how the handicap parking spots don't account for those with invisible disabilities,
Oh, wow.
which I thought was interesting because in a way, I have an invisible disability when it comes to what's called, I have what's called fibromyalgia.
Hmm.
So, and that can be almost crippling on some days, but
Right.
you can't tell by looking at me that I have fibromyalgia.
No.
So, um, yeah, so person first point of view. I like that. I really like that. So,
I
as
like
we
it.
get into this, that was actually our first tip. I know you don't have your notes, so
I don't.
I'll take the notes and form them into questions and ask you. How's
Fair
that?
enough. That sounds
Okay.
good.
Okay, so person first. So that mean we need to treat them as a person first and foremost before anything
Hmm.
else.
Correct. So it kind of goes off of what you said. I kind of read earlier and did some of the research when you're talking about indivisible and visible
Mm-hmm.
disabilities. And as you said, autism does fall underneath the indivisible. You can't walk into a store when this kid is having a meltdown or the
Mm-hmm.
kid's crying. You don't know if he's has autism or not.
Right.
And you just can't look at him. So it kind of feeds into the person first point of view because you're just
Mm-hmm.
going to see a kid. Okay, treat
Right.
them like a kid. Say hi, say hello. You can wave, you can compliment, and just greet them like you would normal with any other kid.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
All right. So if when you greet them, there's no response, then what should you do?
Okay. So this goes back to talking about sensory overload. If
Mm-hmm.
you remember, those with autism, a lot of times they're taking in all their senses at once and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of comes to a block. So what happens is their brain can't process quick enough. That means your nonverbal cues. That means, I love the grocery store because it's the best example.
Right.
The stacking of cans if you're doing a display, the rolling of the carts, the lighting, so many different sounds.
Right.
And all of a sudden you have this person going, "Hey, how are you?" And they don't respond. They're
Yeah.
still taking in a lot of the other. So instead, just be like, don't ask 1,000 questions. Don't
Mm-hmm.
ask, don't repeat your question.
Right.
Because a lot of times the parent will go, "Hey, hold on. He's doing fine." Or the parent might answer for you.
Right.
You can just wave or you can just be like, "Okay, well, I'm doing good." And you
Mm-hmm.
just kind of keep walking and just be nonchalant about it because you did greet them. It's not that you didn't greet them.
Right.
It's like, I can't do this. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they'll answer in a broken fragment. They may be like phone, and you're kind of like, that's when you look to the parent and be like, "Hey parent, can you translate for me? Can you
Yeah.
help me out?"
Yes.
And
Yes.
um
Yes. Um, I like, yeah, the grocery store analogy is one thing that I used to when I originally would when we Curtis was in brick and mortar. One of the things I would tell them is you have to make sure and understand that because I think I read this in one of the sensory processing disorder books. When you think of a child with autism, they do not have the filter that we do. Their brain is
nope.
not filtering, we can filter out the sound of fans or air
Right.
conditioners. Um, you know, most of the time, most of us do not recognize until it is an annoying about ready to,
Right.
bust light, the
Right.
fluorescent lights. We don't hear that hum until it's flickering and about ready to go out in the first place.
Hmm.
But that's all the same sound. It's at the same level. And so trying to be able to bring that out is really, to regulate who in the world is trying to talk or say something is
Right.
so incredibly difficult for them. So
Hmm.
sometimes it's best to say, hey, let's come over here and talk
Right.
in a quieter area. Say if you're
Right.
at church or something like that, to take them over to an area that's a little bit quieter. Or as the parent, I'll recognize if somebody's trying to talk to them and I'll take them over to a corner and
Right.
talk to them, so that they know that it's too loud to talk to them.
Right. I like that.
Um, okay, so what if one of the things I think you put on here too that it was talking about being patient
Yeah.
if they don't understand or they don't respond. And
Right.
I think that's amazing because we have to make sure that we are patient and let us in.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, Anything else you'd say to that point there?
Um, I would, because a lot of it goes back to if they're lower functioning.
Mm-hmm.
WH questions are how. A lot of them don't even know their own feelings,
Mm-hmm.
how to label their own feelings. So, how are you
Right.
today? Or that normal phrase or social phrase is not taught until later
Yeah.
on or when
Oh,
they
yeah.
understand their own um, feelings and their own growth.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, if you notice that the kid's not talking or whatever, start playing peekaboo with them
Oh,
because you
yeah.
could pick up nonverbal cues with that because the kid's gonna go and like look at you like okay and you just start playing peekaboo or you're like, hey, I like the color of your shirt, and sometimes it might have been his favorite shirt that day, and guess what, you just opened up his whole door,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and you're just being kind to them. And when you find that one little outlet, their whole world's like, here, I will totally hand everything over to you because you totally understand what's going through.
Yeah.
And that's why just a simple wave sometimes, instead of saying hi, how are you, or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that, just a simple wave is more than enough for them.
Yeah.
um, don't expect eye contact.
Oh,
Some
yeah.
of them actually have to work on that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a social moray in a lot of ways. I know some
Mm-hmm.
cultures you can't look at some people in the eye because it's disrespectful.
Right.
So it has to be taught for those with autism here because that's the way the United States and the culture is. So
Mm-hmm.
don't expect contact. They're listening to you. I promise you, they're
Yes.
listening. It may take a
Yes.
little
Yes,
bit,
they are.
but they are. So just
Mm-hmm.
kind of having, I wouldn't say lower expectations, but just kind of have a little bit more patience and a little bit
Mm-hmm.
understanding. Because if you see a kid who looks about 10 and you find out that they have autism, sometimes they're only on the mental age of a 7-year old.
Right.
Um, kind of
Yeah.
just,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know
Well,
that. You just,
yeah.
but
Well, and once you find out they have autism, you kind of have to, it's not lower expectations, it's different expectations. It's just a different
right,
set of things. I
right,
mean, I remember one of the things we had to do for Curtis in church and children's church is that he needed to move. He couldn't sit there. And so he would walk and pace back and forth behind all the rest of the students.
right.
And he may not be completely looking at the teacher, but when it came time to question and answer time, he was
Yeah,
rattling off those
right,
answers.
right.
100% knew exactly what had been said. And so he was listening in his own way. Um, and sometimes, all of us need a little motion to be able to learn something
Right,
at times.
right.
So,
It is different
uh,
expectations, but how you
mm-hmm.
get there is totally what we're trying to get across today.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
All right. So, connecting with their interests. How can we do
correct.
that?
Um, I'm gonna brag on my mom. My mom's amazing. We have these discussions all the time,
Okay.
and it just kind of goes back to the grocery store. Prime example.
Mm-hmm.
And she does it naturally. So you can
Right.
actually do. A lot of people do it naturally. So if you don't think technical about it, you do it naturally. So she sees a kid in front of, like, how you're standing in line, and she sees a
Right.
kid in the little buggy cart,
Mm-hmm.
and of course the kid's candy, just says candy, and he's
Yeah.
about 2 or 3 years old. And the mom says, no, well, he goes into like huge irate. And of course, the mother gets is getting stressful, getting just
Mm.
all my mom did was look. She said, you know what? Let's play peekaboo, and just totally distracted the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it was enough to be able to, I like, and then once she got him calmed down so the mom can do what she needed to do to be able to move him forward,
Uh-huh.
he's like, phone, I like you, I like what's going on with your phone, what's on your phone, and started kind of like interacting. And
Mm-hmm.
it made the whole different world, and that's all we're asking. That's how you connect, because he now
Mm-hmm.
is no worry, one, no longer worried about,
Mm-hmm.
the mom is like, oh, you helped me out, and then
Yes.
now you're connecting, and he's showing you what's on the phone, because a lot of them have iPads these days, and a lot of them
Yeah.
have phone. A lot of them it's repeated music, Thomas
Mm-hmm.
the Train, a
Yes.
lot of these same old, putting things in a line kind of
Mm-hmm.
deals. And you can see it even out in the
Mm-hmm.
real world or, in restaurants, just be like, hey, I really like that train. Don't try to move the train. Don't touch any of their
No,
objects.
no.
Don't.
Bad idea.
Bad idea.
No
Um,
touch.
but just wait until they give it to you because
Mm-hmm.
that's their way of saying, here, I really like you.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll have something on their shirt like dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what does a dinosaur say? Roar! And you just have fun
Mm-hmm.
with it. And they're like, ooh. And some of them might be old enough to be talking to you all day about dinosaurs. Don't get
Yes.
mad. Don't go, oh, I should have never asked. No, just let this kid talk to you about dinosaurs.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
okay.
if it's and
you
if it's
know?
in a setting that's where you're trying to connect with them on a regular basis, like
Right.
you said, dinosaurs. Curtis has gone from dinosaurs to Godzilla. Everybody in
Oh.
his youth group knows he likes Godzilla. But if you really want to connect with him, learn a little bit about Godzilla so you
Yep.
can have a little bit of a conversation with him about that.
Right.
And he will know that you spent the time and you are wanting to connect to him. And that's
Right.
one thing you can do, even like if you're in middle school or high
Mm-hmm.
school.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what the person is wearing, what they may be doing. If you
Mm-hmm.
see repeated type things that they do all the time,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Curtis doesn't have any Godzilla t-shirts, but he has a ton of Star Wars t-shirts.
There you go.
Talk to
And
him about
that
Star Wars.
exactly. And the peers could do the same.
Mm-hmm.
Parents
Mm-hmm.
can prep their kids saying, hey, if you go to school and you see any of these repeated kids with these repeated questions or these repeated actions, all you do
Mm-hmm.
is, hey, teach the kid like, okay, what is he wearing? What can my kid pay attention
Mm-hmm.
to be able to pull them in for inclusion? Because it takes both parts. Yeah,
Yes,
we
it
teach
does.
kids with autism how to socialize, but it also takes the other side and how to educate your child to pick up some of these
Right.
nonverbal cues,
Mm-hmm.
some of these, because as in elementary, it's easier.
Right.
But as you get to middle school and high school, that's when you need to start teaching children and themselves how to redirect,
Mm-hmm.
how to pay attention to just go up and just have this 20-minute conversation or learn a fact with them so they can bring
Mm-hmm.
the fact. Because as you said, it lights up Curtis's world. It's like, oh, you are my friend. Like,
You're
you're
trying.
interested in
Mm-hmm.
me. This is
Yeah.
awesome. you
Yeah.
know.
Well, and then even if it is something, and yes, I will fully admit Curtis will talk your leg off about Godzilla. But if you're in a situation in which he needs to turn his attention to something else,
Right.
what is a way that, if you're with somebody and they start talking about something and they're going and going and going and say they're in some sort of class and the teacher needs to start, how can you kindly, and I'm stressing the word kindly, help them make that transition? We technically call it redirection.
Correct. Normally, what I do is we say, hey, if it's a time constraint, so if we're talking about time constraint for
Mm-hmm.
classrooms, let's just say classroom,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, hey, I think that's a really cool idea. I really like that you're really excited about it. Hey, why don't we speak about this time? And you can give them a timer. You'd be like, in 20 minutes, you could tell the whole class all about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way. If you're in a church or things like that, be like, hey, that's really, really cool. I love it. However, we kind of need to focus. Let's shift it. But at the same time, we can always come back to it. But right now, we just need to take a pause. We need to take a stop. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
nice. But what you do first is you compliment about how interested that is awesome. You're
Right.
complimenting about that is awesome. It's not that I don't want to talk about it because nine
Mm-hmm.
times out of 10, when you say no, I don't want to talk about it, they take it
Yeah.
as, oh, you don't like me, you don't
You
have
don't want to be
interest in
my friend.
me, you don't want to be my friend. When
Mm-hmm.
reality, it's one of those double meanings,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like we know that it just needs to pause, it just needs to
Right.
stop, we can always go back. But in a kid's world, when it's like this all the time,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like a calming mechanism in some ways. And so how do
Mm-hmm.
you help and redirect a calming mechanism and things like that? And that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Just like, I think that's really cool, and emphasize it, and then hey, we can always come back to it. And then follow up. That's key.
Yes.
You have to follow up.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't follow up, the next time you say it,
Yeah.
forget about it.
Yeah.
just forget about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It
peers
is.
could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Peers can do that. And that's what a peer buddy does,
Yes.
in the school setting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what a peer buddy does. It goes, hey,
Well,
remember.
yeah. And,
you know?
peer buddies are really important, good peer buddies.
Oh,
There's a difference between a good peer buddy and a bad peer buddy. Um,
yeah.
but good peer
yeah.
buddies can really help in that kind of a situation. And,
Mm-hmm.
always just, saying, hey, uh, this could be great. Well, let's get back to it another time. It's it's very helpful for them to let them know that you are taking interest in them and whatever it is that they
Right.
have to say.
Right.
Um, I was thinking there was something, but there was something that you said that I latched onto, but then it went. Whew. Um, I am a little tired today, so myself, it's
Maybe
me,
a
it's
calming
me.
mechanism, maybe.
Something yeah. Consistency is one of the keys, and I will be the first to admit, as an autism parent, I am not perfect, and consistency is hard because
Oh,
there
it
are
is
so many
hard.
ways for us to be consistent. But to follow through, oh, I think the negative part of it, um, th- an autistic child will maybe not think that may not want to be their friend anymore because they are incredibly literal,
Right.
incredibly literal.
Right.
Um,
Agreed.
so you have to be careful when you're talking to them. You have to be very careful in how you word things. Do not talk in double meanings. Do not
Right.
say something that, uh, let's see, one of them's,
So
that's
sorry.
Sagan. Um,
That is my dog.
yep. But no worries, because I think Chewy was going crazy downstairs anyway. So, um, no, one of the things I was thinking of,
Hush.
so
Hush.
I can't say, when we say
Hush.
drop it to somebody who has autism,
Oh, they will literally
drop
drop
whatever's in their hands,
it. They will. They won't drop what they're saying. They will drop
drop what's in
whatever's
their
in there.
hands.
I remember that.
Yes. So you have to be specific about exactly what you mean.
Right.
Lately, Curtis has been able to reiterate with me, and Nikki and Derek, be more specific. You have to be specific. I didn't know what you were saying. So we got to kind of think about those things. Sometimes
Right.
we kind of, when they're in the moment, and as the family, we're learning that, oh yeah, we can say things like that. But then, like the other day in youth group, we had to jump out of the Zoom call because we were talking about a scripture in Matthew where Jesus was trying to make the point that if something causes you to sin, it was the scripture that says, if your hand causes you to sin, chop it off.
Oh. Oh.
It wasn't
No.
meant to be literal.
Oh, no, it's not.
But Curtis just about had a conniption because he was like, I'm out of this. I'm not chopping my hands off. And I'm like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, no. It's okay. You
It's
don't have to
okay.
chop your hands off.
Nope, it's not like that anymore.
So we
Right.
had to jump out and I had to explain it to him. But
Right.
some of those things, uh, you got to make sure that you're not speaking in double meaning, or
Right.
sometimes the metaphors and things can be a little bit
Right.
confusing for them. So try to keep those out of conversation.
Yes.
um,
Yes.
Nonverbal cues. So they autistic people are taught very extensively on how to identify nonverbal cues,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't mean you and I can't that we don't forget to watch
Right.
for their nonverbal
Correct.
cues. What
Correct.
what all do we need to pay attention for?
I wouldn't say eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
Normally you would do eye contact with the typical, but if you notice they're not paying, don't. It's more watch their face because you could see like you could tell this is tense.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell that's tense. And then you can see this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nonverbal cue. You can see that. Or you can see that you're talking to them and they're like this, but they're looking up and they're kind of going like this. That means they're interested, but they're also interested in what you're saying as well. Just
Mm-hmm.
because they look at their screen doesn't mean that they're ignoring or being bored. So
Right.
just watch those facials because they will smile, even if they don't
Mm-hmm.
laugh or they can't say that's funny. They will smile at you and be like, that's good.
Yeah.
Like you can tell. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
knowing your best friend or your spouse or significant other very,
Right.
very well because we do it naturally, Jess.
Mm-hmm.
We take everything in, we take everything into account. If you own animals, you're paying to they're paying to their attention to all their nonverbal cues. You know
Oh yeah.
exactly what a certain tone means. You know
Mm-hmm.
exactly if they're laying down and things like same thing if you pay attention to your significant other. You know exactly what tone means what. You know
Mm-hmm.
exactly when they're tense and not. You could pick that up even if the kid is a stranger. You can
Mm-hmm.
totally pick that up. It's the same thing, but you're just broadening it to
Mm-hmm.
others.
And when
Um,
they, yeah, when they start that stimming, so that's
mhm,
rocking or whatever, sometimes that they're trying to help them, with self-regulation. And
mhm.
so that may be something that we have to kind of, okay, back off a little bit,
Mhm.
because it may be something that's tense for them.
Correct. Or answering too many questions or asking,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes if you ask, "Hey, how are you?" and all of a sudden the kid starts doing this, you kind of know, like, wait, okay, he doesn't answer that question. Okay, I'm just gonna go to, just games and not ask you any questions.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. Do you see nonverbal? What are some nonverbal cues that you pick up from Curtis that
Oh,
you've
let's see.
recognized?
I know that he tends to pick. He'll start with his hands, start fiddling and almost wringing his hands because he'll pick.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he tends to kind of crouch in. If he is really, really, I mean, if things are really bad, I've noticed here lately with some of the storms and stuff, he's actually started to rock again. He hasn't done
Mm,
that a long time, um, but storms stress him out, and so he
right.
will he'll rock back and forth. I see it sometimes in school when he's stressed. He'll be rocking back and forth and stuff. So,
There's another
um,
one.
yeah. Uh, mhm. Oh, okay. So, there's a comment. Al says, "Oh wow, so much truth in this. The literalness of what you say." Our Justice, who you met at Going Caching last year, Jessica, is autistic. He loves watching the Nano Kids too. That's
Oh,
amazing.
that
That's
is
awesome.
amazing.
And yeah, Curtis is on, and you can tell. I mean, if you watch one of his episodes of the Nano Kids on YouTube, he will. You can tell he's not. We had to teach him. There's this thing. Don't get offended, cat lovers. But there's this cover that goes over a microphone to keep, and it's all fuzzy. It's called a dead cat. That's just the term for it. That's just that's what it is. Um, we had to teach him that when he's looking to say something, he has to look at that dead cat, the microphone cover.
I
Um,
love it. I
uh,
love it.
when he's to try to get him to look at the camera, to look at the camera lens. So yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
and that gives him a point of reference to look at.
Right.
So
Exactly.
what is now when we're thinking about all of these things, and I just briefly want to touch on this, in dangerous situations. Okay,
Okay.
what can we do in a dangerous situation? If something has happened,
Mm-hmm.
um, an autistic child, autistic person is more than likely car accident, something's happening, they are going to pretty much automatically, almost completely shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but in order to help them out of that, if a parent's incapacitated, that's going to put first responders at a real risk,
Right.
because they've got to figure out what to do on their own. If a parent
Right.
is still there and able to say something, they can help kind of coax things. But in dangerous situations, how can we help? Even, even like a fire alarm at school can almost shut down an autistic child.
Right.
Um, what are some of the things that we can do to bring them out of, if there's something that we have to either move quickly or do something
Right.
quickly, how do we coax them out of the complete shutdown and bring them
That's
back out to be
really
able to move?
that's a complex question, just because
Yes, it
remember
is.
when you meet one child with
Just
autism, you've only
you meet
met
one child.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honestly, if you are a parent with the child with autism and they're nonverbal and they can't say I'm autistic or they haven't been taught to yet,
Mm-hmm.
I say definitely put something on your windows. Put
Mm-hmm.
something on the child's seat because a lot of them are still in what are they called?
Booster
They're not
seats or
seatbelts.
the
Right.
seatbelt cover
Or
thing.
put something on the seatbelt saying, hey, because they actually do some, but they say, I have an autistic child. My child's nonverbal, which responders are actually getting taught a lot more on how to respond with kids with children with autism.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say they haven't had it. I can't speak for everybody. I'm not a doctor. I'm not, you
Yeah.
know, but there was a story that you were telling me, which I thought was really highlighted in what we need to, as a community, help with. You said the car was caught on fire and
About
that the
to.
child was with autism and couldn't move. And so what the cops decided to do was, hey, we just got to pick him up and physically move him.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there is a fine line because not only do first responders put in their own life on hand
Yeah.
on the front line, how do you know that the kid who is belligerent, maybe the kid has gone belligerent, how do you, I think there needs to be more research, honestly, and
Yeah.
how
True.
to help it instead of handcuffing, because that's just going to make it. But I know the handcuffs is not so much to arrest him, but to
Mm-hmm.
keep him safe and keep others
Mm-hmm.
safe from it. So maybe,
Mm-hmm.
how do you judge that? How do you?
That's a toughie. We'll have
Yeah, it's
to
a
do some
big
more.
toughie,
Well.
and I just think maybe pay attention to their nonverbal cues, honestly, as a first responder.
Mm-hmm.
And since you have a video camera, like you're always running video cameras, state in the video camera, hey, I've noticed that there's a ribbon on here on this car. He's not responding. I'm just going to pick him up and move it. So you're stating your actions for the video. So if, because unfortunately in this world, it only takes one angle to go
Yes.
completely wrong,
Mm-hmm.
and now what? So if you stated on the video like, hey, I'm doing this because I recognize so and so, so if you have a bad view, you're now protecting yourself and you're still protecting the child.
Yeah.
um I That's a hard that's
We'll have to do
hard.
some. We'll have to do some more research into that one.
It
Um,
is.
but what can we
I know
do?
in a Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Jennifer asks, without asking my son, it's hard to tell whether he's rocking from excitement or overstimulation and anxiety, which that could be an actual sim that you see in multiple situations.
Right.
How do you tease? How do you tease out the meaning behind the stims?
Antecedents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. And explained an antecedent.
Antecedent is something that happened before the behavior.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say his anxiety, you notice that, if you don't mind me talking about Curtis,
That's fine.
um, with Curtis, I knew that the nail picking would always really start occurring before tests.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew, okay, he has anxiety about the test.
Right.
Whereas some of the nail picking was in social settings where somebody he didn't know. Well, the antecedent would be he doesn't know anybody. Now
Mm-hmm.
I have to go above and beyond and go out of my comfort zone. And so, of course, I'm anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jennifer, my best advice is what is happening before the stimming? And then you'll be able
Mm-hmm.
to pinpoint if it's excitement or
Mm-hmm.
if it's anxiety or overstimulation because you'll be
Mm-hmm.
able to pick it up.
Well, and that goes for those in maybe in gen ed classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if to always look at, and when you're around kids with autism, always look and try to find the antecedent or what has
Right.
happened beforehand. That's
Right.
going to tell you a good place to start of what's going on with
Right.
their actions and with what they are doing and how they're responding to you.
Correct. Correct.
Um, so, uh, I mean, I know, I think of, Curtis got trapped in a bathroom once in the when he was much younger when the fire alarm went off. And the
Oh,
fire
that is
alarm
very
was in
sad.
the little tiny bathroom and it reverberated. So that
No.
sound completely just terrified him. And so for probably, gosh, 3 or 4 years after that, you had to tell him, and he was the only student that was told um, that there was going to be a fire alarm that day.
Hmm?
And he was taken aside because he had to know, or it would be an all out meltdown.
Right. Right.
Um, so, see, so Jennifer says he does. Okay, so she's speaking about the rocking. He does
Right.
it either during meals or watching TV shows or movies, where it could be either. Very, very true.
That is true.
Because the rocking could be because it's something he doesn't like, or there's a texture that he doesn't like in the meal, or it
Mhm.
could be his favorite thing. Um,
Yeah.
and then,
Oh.
yeah, I guess there wouldn't you be asking, not um, not directly asking why are you rocking, but if it's at
Hmm.
the dinner table, couldn't you say something like, do you like those green beans?
Right. Do you like those green beans? And he could tell you yes or no. If you've seen the movie, it may be the stimulation, but if he's not rocking through the whole movie and only certain parts, really go in and see, is it the excitement of the movie? Is it the music that's heightened? You can
Mm-hmm.
ask him, hey, is it the music? Do you like the music? Do you, and you're asking yes or no, and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
gauge it. And you may have to do it not just in one sitting, but
Mm-hmm.
over a whole bunch of setting, because you
Right.
can just ask, do you like the green beans? Yes. Okay. The next time you give him green beans and he has the same motion, then you know that he really likes green beans.
There you
You
go.
can isolate the foods
Mm-hmm.
to really play games. Like when you go on a diet, you just kind of
Mm-hmm.
isolate certain things. It's the
Right.
same thing.
Right.
Same
So.
thing with movies or TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe play just the song out of the show. And is it the music?
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to have to isolate, go back to which one is he focusing on at the time, and you have to dive in. Okay, all right, my five senses are heightened right now. What
Mm-hmm.
five senses is more heightened than the other? And you just isolate it. Okay, is it this one? And
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to tell Jen with your kid if it's the music or it's the
Yeah.
movie, but you can block out one of the senses by just
Mm-hmm.
isolating one of them.
Right. That's good. That's good. All right. So as we kind of wrap up,
Yes.
that's on this subject. Are there some sayings or things that people kind of need to throw out before they try to come and come in contact with uh, those with autism
Mm-hmm.
parents? What do you think?
I think there is, and it's just from my experiences of being with families and learning what saying kind of bothers them and gets down. The
Mm-hmm.
biggest one, and it's even bugs me as a special ed teacher, and I'm actually very opinionated on it. I'll be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, please don't tell a parent or a child when they say, hey, I have autism, because that takes a lot of courage for the kid with autism, but don't tell that kid,
Yes.
oh, that's okay. We all have a little autism in us. One,
Hmm.
that's downplaying. Two, you're just now telling the kid that his autism is no longer important. Even
Mm-hmm.
though you meant very, very well, your intentions were good, but that
Mm-hmm.
kid is going to take it so literally, like, what you. You have autism too? Hold on, but you're not like me. And it confuses them, but
Mm-hmm.
on another level, on a third level, that's demeaning.
Yeah.
It's demeaning. I don't mean to use
Yeah.
such harsh vocabulary words, but I seen it more than not as a like when I was working with parents, and I would quail the parents because I'm like, I don't think they meant it that way. Give them the benefit of the doubt. But that's a
Mm-hmm.
saying that occurs more often than not. That's like saying I'm stupid. Oh, we're all stupid. That shouldn't be done either.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I
No.
know.
I'll stop before I get my little tangent here. But
uh,
like,
um, I've heard the saying, um, that I know people are mean well with this as well,
right.
and they are trying to, maybe, I don't know, relate.
Yeah.
Um, I've heard it said, and especially they'll say to me, God doesn't won't give you anything more than you can handle. Um, that's great in certain situations. That applies. However,
Right.
in this situation, I don't think it applies because a friend of mine, my husband and I, is actually that we were talking to, had an autistic child as well, and he said, um, it's not like that. We have to look at it in the fact that God has given us these precious angels to care for a little while.
That's right.
And they are precious angels. And
They
the
are.
truth of the matter is, um, he's, my dad has always told me too, um, God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
Called. Yep.
So that kind of helps me. But the other thing is, we can't lose sight of the fact that these kids are so amazing. I mean, I know
They
that
are.
you've seen it. I see it with my child. And I just want everybody to understand that even though he's different, he is amazing.
Oh, yes.
And I'll be the first to tell you that he can irritate the out of me, just like any other mother. Any other mother with their child.
Yeah, because they're always
But
children first, you know?
yes.
Like,
Um
they're going to be a kid.
they give you a run for your money.
They do.
Um and that is oh, Jennifer has a great one. God knew your child needed a special set of parents like you. Yeah. See, that makes it, knowing that that's exactly right, Jennifer. I love that.
I
Um,
love that saying because, like,
I
it
love it.
recognizes that it's a strength. That's a
Mm-hmm.
strength. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not demeaning. It doesn't have a double meaning. Like,
Mm-mm.
God bless has a double meaning, you know?
Yes.
Like, um, I like that.
Yeah, I do.
That's a good one.
But, for any and everybody to be able to understand how much more, how special these kids are, how
Right.
special these people are, if you will just take the time. Yeah, it's going to take a little more on your part to
Oh,
get to
yeah.
know them,
Oh, yeah.
to really, and it's going to take a while for them to let you in. But once you get in,
It never goes away.
no, never. They are some of the most loyal people.
That's right.
You thought you knew what loyal was. No, no, no,
No.
no. But they are great, great people. And it's
They are.
just, you relate to them and you see what a joy they can be. And when they get it, when they understand certain things and they're able to relate, and you get to see a glimpse of their world and how it looks to them, and there's that understanding, there's nothing like it in the world.
No,
There really isn't. There
there's
really
not.
isn't. So
Mm-mm.
I would encourage each and every one of you out there who's listening to this or watching this, make sure that you do your best to take that extra step and try to
Mm-hmm.
truly connect. Not
Right.
just communicate, but connect
Connect. Mm-hmm.
with anybody on the spectrum. It'll be an amazing thing.
It is.
Um, wow. So if
I
you
do.
guys have any other questions, um, any other things that you might want us to talk about, or any other questions about how to connect, please be sure and email us at info@myspectrumlife.com. Any topics, any questions, we will be more than happy to reply and to possibly have a whole entire episode on your question.
Yes.
Where are some of the places they can find us?
You can find us at facebook.com/myspectrumlife, instagram.com/myspectrumlife, twitter.com/myspectrumlife1. And if you're watching on YouTube, please look down below to the subscribe button and hit subscribe for us.
We would greatly appreciate that. And as we always say, well, with a lot of faith, a whole lot of love,
Love.
and a few million fidget toys, because they'll get broken, lost, or both.
Or both.
Yes, you'll make it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.